What is up, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 3&D here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Make sure you hit subscribe below and follow our socials at the 3&D ETB and at ETB Network. On tonight's episode, we got a jam-packed slate for you guys as we missed last week's episode, but we're here for this week as we'll be going over the Pistons and the Grizzlies' rough starts to the season. The in-season tournament is now over. The Los Angeles Lakers are the first ever in-season tournament champions. We'll be going over their run to the in-season tournament and what that exactly means. The AP poll has been moving up and down. There's a lot of interesting teams. Then we'll be going over some of the top college games of the week and the NBA power rankings as we always do. So I hope everybody's doing well. There's been plenty of basketball going on over the past couple of weeks. The college basketball season is in full force. We are now gearing up to getting close to the second half of the season where conference play pretty much begins. A lot of the easy beginning early on matchups are somewhat out of the way for the most part. But besides that, I mean, North Dakota State just beat a Division III school by 80 points today. So we haven't seen those bye games completely finished yet in college basketball, but there's been a lot of good games going on over the last couple of weeks. We'll be previewing this week's upcoming games for you guys and some of the movement and stuff that's been going on throughout college basketball. And once the new year hits, we'll be starting to dive more deeper into the NBA draft as well. Checking out some stock watches and some guys who have been playing well and some guys to look out for in the upcoming NBA draft. But to lead off the show, we'll jump right into the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons now are off to a 19 straight game losing streak to start the season. They start off the season 2-1, and now they sit at 2-20. So it's been a complete disaster for Detroit this year. They've lost 19 straight games. They made some moves this offseason. They let Dwayne Casey go. He ended up getting a front office role. They brought in Monty Williams to the richest contract in NBA head coaching history, signing him to a 6-year deal. They brought in a few more top draft picks, but they haven't been able to put anything together. And for the most part, with these 19 straight losses, they've been getting blown out. These games have been practically uncompetitive for the Pistons this season. And it's sad because Cade Cunningham is now finally healthy. In his third season of his career, after being the first overall pick in 2021, there's a lot of anticipation going into this season and, hoping that he'll stay healthy. He's been playing well, but almost nobody has been playing well beside him. It's been an absolute dumpster fire right now for the Detroit Pistons, and they keep sliding and sliding more. And this could very well end up being a 2011-ish Philadelphia 76ers that we may see again, who end up winning like 12, 13 games or something like that. Like that's the kind of vibe that we're getting from this Pistons team. It's really bad. They're sitting at 2-20, obviously fifth place in their division. Cade Cunningham has played in all 22 games. He's averaging 22 points and 7.3 assists while running the point. But there's a lot of weird things going on with their lineup as well. And one of those being their guard play, because they're absolutely loaded with guards. They have way too many guards in their contract. They decided to pick up the team option on Alec Burks. So he's one of their guards in the backcourt. Killian Hayes has been their starting point, has been starting alongside Cade Cunningham, which has mean that Jaden Ivey has pretty much came off the bench all year, and Ivey's grown frustrated with coming off the bench after having a great freshman season last year where he started in practically almost every game. Everyone expected Ivey and Cunningham to be the future backcourt. For whatever reason, Killian Hayes has been taking over as the starting point guard this season. He's averaging 10 points and 4.3 assists, but you got Ivey coming off the bench averaging 11.2 points. Jalen Duren got off to a tremendous start to start the season, but cooled down a bit and is now averaging just 12.6 points and 10.9 rebounds. Bojan Bogdanovic they've held on to, but he's only played in 3 games this year, while scoring 17.7 points a game in those 3 games. They've been absolutely terrible. And you look at their team, and the only real way that you can imagine that they can kind of turn things around in any bits is if they can kind of package some of their young core together to possibly get some more draft picks or trade some of their veterans like Alec Burks, who has an expiring contract, or Bojan Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic has been a piece on their team that you've been expecting that they would be trading for the past year and a half, and they haven't been able to figure out a trade. Apparently, they're asking way too much for him. And he's only playing 3 games this season, so it's difficult to ask a lot out of him. And then there's also guys who just haven't panned out either. Marvin Bagley, who obviously was the second overall pick just a handful of years ago, did not really pan out in Sacramento. He's only played 20 games this year coming off the bench, averaging 9.8 points. And James Wiseman, too. Wiseman was a top draft pick in 2020 for the Golden State Warriors, was hurt a lot for his first few years, got traded to the Pistons at the deadline last year, and he has barely played this season. He's played in 12 games, but only averaging 11.3 minutes, and just averaging 5 points and 3 rebounds. So it really, everything that they've touched has not gone well for them. Isaiah Stewart's not having a good year, who they just extended. He's started in all 22 games so far this season, and he's only averaging 10.7 points and 7.1 rebounds, which his numbers last year blow those numbers out of the water. They just haven't been good. They have not been good by any stretch. They also have some other veterans too. Joe Harris has barely even played this year, played in 8 games so far, only averaging 12.6 minutes a game. And their rookie Asar Thompson too, who's been starting a bit, hasn't had that great of a season. He's averaging 10.1 points, 8.5 rebounds, but they definitely expected more out of him. His twin brother for the Houston Rockets, Amen Thompson, has actually been playing fantastic. But Asar Thompson has not looked amazing to start this season. So there's so many things that are going wrong right now with the Detroit Pistons, and they keep sliding. They've lost 19 straight now, and it's going to be difficult to see when they'll be able to extinguish this fire, because they've got the Indiana Pacers, the Philadelphia 76ers twice, and then the Milwaukee Bucks this upcoming week. So they don't have any easy tasks coming up, and they began, and just like I said a couple minutes ago too, they've been getting blown out most of these games. They just lost 123-91 to the Magic. They're losing by 10 plus points. None of these games are close. Their closest game recently was the Knicks game, where they lost by 6. They lost 118-112, and they led for a portion of that game. That seemed like the game that they were going to snap their streak last Thursday, and they weren't able to figure it out. So they have not been doing well. The Pistons keep sliding, and they're going to be making a strong case to be the top odds in the lottery to get the first overall pick this upcoming year. And jumping over from the Pistons, we got another team who's sliding, but unlike the Pistons, they have a little bit more of upside heading into the later parts of the season. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies have been off to a very bad start. They're 6-15 now to start the season. And this was as expected, in my opinion. I projected the Grizzlies before the season to finish, I think, like 10 to 15 games under 500. I thought that the time that they were going to be without John Morant, without Steven Adams, and without Brandon Clark to start the season was going to be way too much. Steven Adams is going to miss the entire season. Brandon Clark probably won't be back for another month or two. John Morant, though, is getting ready to come back. His 25-game suspension is almost over. He only has a few games left in it, so he should be back in the next couple of weeks to make his season debut for the Memphis Grizzlies. But they have not been playing well at all. And, in the meantime, they've been having to rely on a lot of other guys who have just not been able to carry their weight. Desmond Bane has obviously been their star player, with all those guys out, averaging 24.6 points a game. And he started in all 21 games. Jaren Jackson Jr. has also started in all 21 games. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is actually taking a step back from his Defensive Player of the Year season last season, where he put up some ridiculous stats. He's averaging 19.9 points, only 5.9 rebounds, and only 1.8 blocks compared to the 3 blocks a game that he was averaging last season. And Marcus Smart has started in 11 games. They've been really just getting glue guys to fill in the gaps to start the year. Bismack Biyombo has started in 15 games for them this season. They've tried so many different starting lineups to plug in for Clark, Adams, and Morant all being out. Santi Aldama has started in 4 of those games. Derrick Rose has started in 4 games. David Roddy started in 6. Zaire Williams started in 8. Practically their entire rotation has started in at least one game. this season. They have not had a fluent starting five with the amount of injuries that they've been dealing with. I mean, they've also been dealing with other injuries too. Luke Kennard's only played in 8 games. Marcus Smart's only played in 11 games. He's playing about half the games this season, so he's been hurt too. And they've dug themselves into a pretty big hole. They're 6-15. John Morant will be coming back, but will that be enough to dig them out of this big hole? I'm not too sure. They start off the season 0-6, losing their first 6 games. They have won 3 of their last 5, though. They beat the Pistons, the Jazz, and the Mavericks, but they lost to the Timberwolves. Timberwolves have been red hot this season to start the year, and they lost to the Phoenix Suns, too. So it's going to be very telling how the next few weeks go, but they should get John Morant back very soon. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with John Morant. You know, Adam Silver kind of stepping in and saying that he's going to keep an eye on John Morant over the past few weeks, and, you know, keeping the restrictions on him to not be able to play for a good portion of this season, making sure that he behaves correctly, all that kind of stuff. But he will be back fairly soon, and the Grizzlies will look to get a little bit of a spark from them, because obviously the Grizzlies have been one of the better teams in the Western Conference since John Morant has become the star of their team over the past few seasons. So that's definitely another thing to look out for. But if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan, you're definitely feeling a lot better than a Detroit Pistons fan. I don't know what Pistons fans are thinking right now, because this team just looks abysmal, and there really isn't anything coming to save them anytime soon. So it's going to be really bad. So jumping over to that, the in-season tournament is finally over. And I say it's finally over because we've been, everybody here, I think on the entire Empty the Bench team, not just myself, have been very vocal about how annoying this in-season tournament is, how it doesn't really make much sense. And I'll be honest with you, I'm glad to see that it's over. And I'm glad to see that those ugly courts are finally going to be gone. And you can give the Los Angeles Lakers their cup or whatever the hell they want to call it. I'm just very glad it's over. I'm very glad it's over. But enough of me digging into it. We'll recap the finals game. So the Indiana Pacers took on the Los Angeles Lakers on Saturday night in Las Vegas for the in-season tournament final. The Lakers ended up winning 123-109. So the Los Angeles Lakers are your first ever NBA Cup champions for the in-season tournament. It was a stellar game by Anthony Davis. He led the way with 41 points and 20 rebounds, an absolutely stellar game from him. LeBron James, on the other hand, had 24 points and 11 rebounds as well, having a great game himself, and a few other good contributing games. Austin Reeves, coming off the bench, had 28 points, and D'Angelo Russell starting had 13 points. And on the Indiana Pacers front, Tyrese Halliburton has been one of the talks of the season, with the amazing start he's been off to start his 23-24 season. He had a little bit of a struggle in the finals game. He had 20 points and 11 assists, but he only shot 2 of 8 from 3, which is very uncharacteristic for him. Those 6 missed shots were his only 6 missed shots from the field, though. He was 8 for 14 total from the field. He also had 3 turnovers, though. But the main scorers for the Pacers were, along with Halliburton, was Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench. He also had 20 points. Aaron Nesmith had 15. And Obi Toppin actually started and had 13 points. So the Pacers maneuvered their way to the finals in the in-season tournament. They picked off the Milwaukee Bucks in the semifinals for their pool, and they were able to make it all the way to the finals, and were knocked off by the Los Angeles Lakers, though. So the Lakers are now your in-season tournament champions. I think the biggest and kind of coolest thing about this entire ordeal is the fact that they get $500,000 is pretty much the award for the in-season tournament champion. And that's big for guys who are on two-way contracts, for guys who are on veteran minimums. There are several guys on two-way contracts that get to double their salary now. Such as Demoy Hodge, Colin Castleton, all those guys. are going to get a much higher salary to for the rest of the season now. So it's pretty exciting in that sense. As far as what it does for legacy and all that kind of stuff, I don't think it does anything. I really don't. I think that the entire in-season tournament situation it's very weird. It's no when you're looking at legacy, I don't think anybody's going to go down and truly look at in-season tournament wins, how this kind of impacts anything other than the fact that you were able to win a couple of extra games during the season. I think that's kind of like the main exciting piece to all of this. And as far as going to LeBron James, all that kind of stuff, I've seen a lot of LeBron fans already jumping on the bandwagon of how amazing that it is that he won the first ever one, and he'll be turning 39 soon, and he still got it, all that kind of stuff. I don't think that it really says anything about that. I think that this is just like some weird tournament that the NBA is kind of put together and are testing out, and I think that that's pretty much the extent of it. I would like to see what the viewership was like for the in-season tournament final, because I'm not too sold that it was a highly watched game. I really don't think that many people cared too much. I'll be completely honest with you. I watched very little of it. After the Knicks were eliminated, I was not very into it. Yeah, after the Knicks got eliminated, I was not very much into it. I didn't really see too much. I didn't really watch too much of it. I didn't see too much of an extent of it. So the Los Angeles Lakers are your first ever in-season tournament champions. That's pretty much the extent of it, and it'd be interesting to see the future seasons what this amounts from, because I'll be completely honest with you, I don't think that it was like that cool of a concept. I don't think a lot of NBA fans liked it. I don't think that this is something that's going to last very long, and it's going to be a big selling point for the NBA going forward. So, be interesting to see what coming years say about it. But yeah, the in-season tournament is finally wrapped up, and we're excited. We're excited that it's finally over. So jumping over from that, from the NBA, we got some college basketball news. So the AP poll has been bouncing around a lot. And obviously last week we didn't have an episode. So we're going to fill you in a little bit on what the AP poll is looking like. By the time this episode premieres, there will be this week's new AP poll. But heading into this past week, Arizona was at number 1, Kansas at number 2, Houston at 3, Purdue at 4, UConn at 5, and Baylor at 6. Those are the top 6, and all of them won this week. Nobody lost, so your top 6 will probably stay the same heading into the brand new week. Colorado State has been one of the talks of college basketball right now. They were red hot, but they finally lost their first game of the season. Now they're 9-1. They were up to number 13 this week in the top 25. They lost to St. Mary's on Saturday, though, so they'll definitely fall. And BYU as well was up to 14 after being 9-0. They also lost their first game of the season, losing to Utah on Saturday as well. So 2 undefeated teams both went under after this weekend. So we should see Colorado State and BYU both falling a little bit on the AP poll. And then 2 other undefeated teams who made their debuts in the AP poll this week. Oklahoma, who is now 9-0, should be on the rise. They're ranked 19 this week. They should be climbing up even higher. And Clemson rejoined at number 24. They should be going up even higher too. They're 9-0 as well. And they stayed undefeated. Duke fell all the way to 22. They won this week, though, so they should stay relatively the same. I don't think they're going to really move up much. They might move up to 21 or 20 because their win wasn't extremely impressive. So I don't think that's going to give you much hope to see Duke fly back up the rankings. But they fell big time. And Michigan State, too, is a team that we'll talk about in a few when we're going over the top college games of the week. But they're down to 4-4 now. And after being a preseason top 5 team in the nation, it's pretty spectacular. It's pretty amazing how much they've fallen and how that incredible it is that they've kind of fallen off the map and they have not been able to put anything good together so far this season. And then James Madison, who's been kind of the talk of college basketball to start the season. They're 9-0. They're still undefeated after beating Old Dominion on Saturday. They're ranked at 18 this week. They should be right around the same as well. It'll be interesting to see with Colorado State at 13, BYU at 14, and James Madison at 18, which if James Madison moves ahead of those two teams since those two teams lost, or if James Madison still stays somewhat behind them, because Colorado State definitely does have some bigger wins and BYU as well. That's why they were ahead of James Madison, even though they were all undefeated. James Madison, their biggest win coming pretty much, they're really only one big win has come against Michigan State, I believe. That was their only ranked win so far this season that got them into the top 25. But they're not losing. So as long as they're not losing, they'll be camping out in the top 25 for plenty more weeks to come. So jumping into that, we'll be going over some of the top college games of the week heading into the week of December 11th. There's going to be plenty of really good college basketball games, but if you're going to be excited for any games going on during the week, don't get too excited because the big games don't start until this upcoming weekend. There's only one game that I really have to watch out for during the week, and that's Wednesday night, Utah State at Santa Clara, Wednesday night at 10 o'clock on ESPN+. Both those teams have been off to great starts to start the season. Utah State is 9-1 to start the year. They've gotten some votes in the top 25 AP poll, but they probably won't be ranked heading into this week. Their only loss came against Bradley, who's also had a great year. Great Osabor has been their leading scorer, 19.8 points, 9 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks. And a familiar face to some, Ian Martinez is on Utah State this year. He's a transfer from Maryland and Utah. You might remember him if you're a Big Ten fan or a Pac-12 fan, but he is on Utah State now, averaging 10 points and 3 rebounds for them. And Santa Clara, on the other hand, has put in some NBA talent over the last couple of years. Brandon Pajemski, who is now on the Golden State Warriors, and Jalen Williams, who's the second leading scorer for the Oklahoma City Thunder 2 years ago. They're 7-3 now to start the season. Their 3 losses coming to Cal, Ohio State, and New Mexico, and their one big win coming against Oregon. Their leading scorer is Carlos Marshall, averaging 15.6 points and 6.5 rebounds. So Utah State versus Santa Clara. If you're an East Coast person up late Wednesday nights, maybe tune that game on. If you've got ESPN Plus, that's by far the best game in the Monday through Friday window, in the Monday through Thursday window, though the weeknight window. Saturday and Sunday is where the games get really good, mainly being Saturday. So the next big game of the week, though, is Friday night at 10 o'clock. The only good game that's going to be on Friday night is number 5 UConn at number 7 Gonzaga. This one's going down Friday night at 10 o'clock in Washington State on ESPN2. So UConn, the reigning NCAA champions, been off to a great start this year. They're ranked 5th this week. They'll probably be ranked 5th this upcoming week. They're 9-1 to start the season. Their only loss coming to Kansas, but they've had some big wins. They beat UNC, they beat Texas, and they beat Indiana. And this is also UConn's last game before the Big East Conference play begins. So this is going to be their last game playing against non-Big East opponents. Start the season. Big East always starts their conference play much earlier than any of the other Power 6 schools do. They start right around Christmas time. So the Big East conference play all the Big East teams only have a couple of non-conference games left now. Tristan Noonan has been off to an amazing start for UConn. He's been the leading scorer, averaging 17.1 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 6.1 assists. Cam Spencer has also been a sharpshooter off the bench, averaging 15.9 points and shooting 41.9% from three. And then on Gonzaga's side, they're 7-2. Heading into this week, they're ranked 7th right now in the AP poll. They will most likely fall though after losing this past Saturday. They've lost to Washington and Purdue. They lost to Washington on Saturday. Washington's actually had a pretty decent year, but that'll definitely cost them the number 7 seed. They'll probably be in the double digits heading into this week. But their big wins have come against UCLA and USC. They also will be playing Mississippi Valley State on Monday, so they'll be probably 8-2 heading into this game. Their leading scorer has been Anton Watson, averaging 14.6 points, 8.7 rebounds. Graham Ike, the transfer from Wyoming, averaging 14.3 and 7.9. And then Ryan Nemhard, the transfer from Creighton, has been averaging 12.4 and 5.8. Besides those three and Nolan Hickman, Gonzaga's not too deep this year. I'm not I haven't been too sold on Gonzaga. I'm not in love with their team heading into this season. I think that they're a little bit weaker than previous years. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes down. And now heading into the Saturday window, which is where the best games are going to be going down. It'll be led off by number 2 Kansas at Indiana going down Saturday at 12:30 p.m. on CBS. Kansas was the number 1 team in the nation heading into the season. They're 9-1 to start the year now after losing to Marquette a couple weeks ago in the Jim Maui Invitational. But they've also had some big wins. They beat Tennessee, UConn, Kentucky, and Missouri. Hunter Dickinson is probably the favorite to win National Player of the Year as of right now. He's been averaging 19.4 points and 12.6 rebounds for the Jayhawks to start the season. And Kevin McCullough has also been amazing. 2 grad seniors, Dickinson and McCullough, 2 guys who are going to be leaving after this season. McCullough's been averaging 19 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 5 assists. And Indiana, on the other hand, is unranked. We'll see if they get ranked this week. They probably will not, but they're 7-2. Their 2 losses coming against UConn and Auburn on Saturday. The loss against Auburn probably keeps them unranked heading into this week, mainly because they haven't had any big wins. They haven't beat any ranked teams yet this season. Their 2 biggest wins coming against Maryland and Michigan, and neither of those teams were ranked. Khalil Ware has been by far their star player to start the season. The sophomore, former 5-star recruit, played at Oregon last year and did not have a great year, decided to come back instead of entering the NBA draft. He transferred to Indiana, and he's been having a tremendous start to the season, averaging 16.7 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 1.4 blocks. Mackenzie Mbako, who's another 5-star big man, who's a freshman this year, has not played very much, but is averaging 8.6 points and 3.7 rebounds. And then also in the Saturday window, we got number 6 Baylor at Michigan State Saturday at 2:00. This game will be coming on right after Kansas, Indiana, on CBS. So this is part of a back-to-back. Baylor has been off to a tremendous start to start the season. They're ranked at 6 this week, and they'll probably stay at 6 heading into the next week. They're 9-0 to start the season. They're mainly the reason why they're not number 1 or number 2, even though they're undefeated, is they haven't really played. They haven't played any ranked teams. They haven't beaten any ranked teams so far this season. They beat Auburn and Seton Hall. Those have been their 2 biggest wins. But this is going to be a good game for them. Michigan State has completely underperformed to start the season, but Baylor's been red hot. Jacoby Walter, who's a potential lottery pick in this upcoming draft, has been their leading scorer at 14.9 points, 4 assists. And transfer Ray J. Dennis has been their point guard, averaging 14.2 points and 6.6 assists. And then Michigan State, on the other hand, is 4-4. They started off the season as a preseason AP poll top 5 team, and after losing a couple of games to start the season, they quickly fell out of the top 25. I believe they were ranked 4th to start the season. That I think they fell all the way to 18 in week 2, and then they fell out of the rankings in week 3, and they have not re-entered the rankings. And at 4-4, it doesn't seem like they're going to be re-entering the rankings anytime soon, unless they're able to piece together some big wins. And this is the first one that they need to piece together. They've lost to Duke, Arizona, and Wisconsin, as well as Nebraska on Saturday. So those are their 4 losses. All losses that if they want to be ranked teams, they got to put together some wins. They got to win at least 3 of those 4. And their team has completely underperformed. Tyson Walker, though, has been good, averaging 20.7 points a game for Michigan State in the meantime. So number 6 Baylor at Michigan State Saturday at 2:00 on CBS. This will be an interesting one to watch, a Big 12, Big 10 matchup going down. And then on Saturday at 2:30 on ESPN2, we have number 21 ranked Texas A&M taking on number 3 Houston. So Texas A&M fell a little bit in the AP poll after losing to both Florida Atlantic and Virginia. They took on Memphis on Sunday as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they're even ranked in the top 25 headed into this week, but they're down to 21 this past week. Wade Taylor IV, who was the preseason player of the year for the SEC, it's been averaging 18 points and 4.6 assists to start the year. Henry Coleman averaging 14 and 9 as well. And then you got Houston on the other hand, who's been red hot. They're ranked 3rd in the nation to this season. They're 10-0 to start the season. They beat Utah and Xavier, were their 2 big wins. But they've been off to a tremendous start. LJ Cryer, who was a transfer from Baylor, has been their leading scorer, averaging 17.8 points. Jamal Shed, who's been a stellar piece of the consistency for Houston over the last few years, has been averaging 9.1 points and 4 rebounds. And then Saturday at 3:00, we got number 24 Clemson at Memphis. So this is a battle between Clemson, who is undefeated at 9-0, and Memphis, who could be ranked this week. They've been putting together some pretty good wins. It'll be interesting to see. They're just out of the top 25 right now, but they've been playing well. This game is Saturday at 3:00 on ESPN Plus. Clemson 9-0 to start the season. Their biggest wins coming against TCU and Alabama. That's the reason why they barely are in the top 25 despite being undefeated, as they haven't really played many teams to start the season. But once ACC play begins, and if they keep this streak going, they're going to fly up the top 25. So they're ranked at 24 though this week. PJ Hall has been their star player, averaging 20.1 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks. And grad senior Joe Girard, transfer from Syracuse, has been fantastic for Clemson as well, averaging 15.1 points and 3.4 assists. And Memphis, on the other hand, 6-2 to start the season. They lost to Villanova and Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been off to a great start, but they've beat Arkansas, Michigan, and Missouri. While they're playing Texas A&M on Sunday, they got 2 big transfers that have been their star players. David Jones, transfer from St. John's, has averaged 19 points and 6.5 rebounds, and Javon Quinterly, who's a transfer from Alabama, averaging 12 points and 4.8 assists. And then an unranked matchup Saturday at 3:00 on CBS at the exact same time. We got Ohio State at UCLA. So 2 interesting teams. Ohio State's been off to a good start this season. They're 8-2 to start the year. They've lost to Texas A&M and Penn State, but they beat Alabama and Minnesota. So they have a very interesting resume so far. Bruce Thornton has been their key main player. They don't really have too much star power this season. Bruce Thornton's being their best player, but there's not too many guys that the typical college basketball fan will look at their roster and think that's any big name guys, I should say. They're kind of a under the radar type of team. They're 8-2, but they're unranked because they've played a pretty easy schedule to start the year. And then UCLA is 5-3 to start the season. They're unranked as well. They lost to Villanova, Gonzaga, and Marquette. So they've lost to 3 very solid teams. Those would have been key games to capitalize on if they wanted to be ranked. But Adam Bona, who's their returning big man, has been their key player, averaging 13.1 points, 6.4 rebounds. And they have a few foreign freshmen who have been great so far this year. Lazar Stefanovic has averaged 11.5 points, 6.3 rebounds. Ade Mara has averaged 5.5 points and 3.4 rebounds. He's a 7'4" freshman. And Burke Byatunsil, who's a lefty 3-point sniper. He's been averaging 5.3 points and 3.3 rebounds for UCLA. So UCLA's got a very raw team. They've got a bunch of freshmen, a bunch of international freshmen too that not too many teams knew about heading into the season. And then Saturday at 4:30, probably the best game of the day on Saturday, is exclusive to Peacock members only. So Saturday at 4:30 on Peacock, we have number 1 Arizona taking on number 4 Purdue. So this is going to be a really, really good matchup. Arizona has been off to an amazing start to start the season. They're 8-0 now. They beat Duke, Michigan State, and Wisconsin on Saturday. They destroyed Wisconsin, who was actually ranked this week and probably won't be ranked after that butt kicking that they took from Arizona. Caleb Love has been their star player, transfer from UNC, averaging 14.1 points, 5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. Keyshawn Johnson, who's a transfer from San Diego State, also averaging 13 points and 7 rebounds. Umar Ballo, Kylan Boswell, and Pelly Larson have all been averaging over 12 points a game as well. So their entire starting five have averaged at least 12 points a game to start the season. So Arizona's scoring can come in bunches as well. And then Purdue, on the other hand, is 9-1 to start the season. Their one loss coming to Northwestern. That's why they're ranked at 4 and not number 1, where they were earlier in the season. But they've beaten some good teams. They beat Gonzaga, Tennessee, Marquette, and Alabama. Zach Edey, the reigning National Player of the Year, averaging 24.8 points, 10.8 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks. And Braden Smith, averaging 13.2 points, 7.2 assists, and 5.9 rebounds. So number 1, Arizona. Number 4, Purdue. Saturday at 4:30 on Peacock, by far the best game of the week. And then later on Saturday at 5:30 on CBS, we have number 9 ranked North Carolina at number 16 Kentucky. So a little UNC versus Kentucky matchup. This one should be really good. UNC 7-2 to start the season. Their 2 losses coming to Villanova and UConn, and their 2 biggest wins coming against Arkansas and Tennessee. RJ Davis has been averaging 21 points a game to start the season. Armando Bacot has been fantastic, averaging 16 and 12, and transfer Harrison Ingram has been averaging 15 and 6 to start the year. And then Kentucky has been off to a 7-2 start to start the season. Their losses coming to UNC Wilmington and Kansas. That loss to Wilmington is part of the reason why they're ranked at 16 and not any higher. They also beat Miami, which was their biggest win of the season by far. But Kentucky's got an interesting team. They've got 5 big-time freshmen. Antonio Reeves has been their leading scorer, averaging 18 points a game. But Rob Dillingham, one of their freshmen, has been averaging 14.1 points, 4.9 assists. Reed Shepard has been averaging 13 points, 4.6 rebounds. And DJ Wagner has been averaging 12.6 points and 3.8 assists for the Kentucky Wildcats. And that wraps it up for the top college games of the week. There's a lot of them. This week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is a little bit light, but Friday we got UConn versus Gonzaga, and then Saturday is a clean slate of good college basketball games. So, if you want to build your schedule around which college basketball games are going to be the best for this week, definitely do that. Get it ready for Saturday. So those are the top college games of the week, heading into the week of December 11th. And to round things off for the episode, we'll be checking out my newest NBA Power Rankings. So it's been 2 weeks now since we did the last Power Rankings, and there's been a little bit of movement. The Power Rankings are definitely much more interesting than we thought they would be to start the season. There's been some interesting teams who have been absolutely stellar and cannot be ignored to start the year. And as you can remember, the Denver Nuggets were my number 1 for the first few weeks of the season. They fall completely out of the top 5 now, and I don't think there's any denying that. Number 5 is the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic have been fantastic to start the season. 15-7. They've won 10 of their last 12. Paolo Banchero is probably going to be an all-star in his sophomore season, averaging 20.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. He leads the team in all 3 of those categories. And Franz Wagner also one of the co-leaders in scoring at 20.7 points a game. This week they'll be taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers at home on Monday. They'll be in Boston on Friday, and then in Boston again on Sunday. Then ranked at number 4, we got the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are 15-7 to start off the season. They've won 5 of their last 7. But their most notable loss came in the in-season tournament semifinal on Thursday to the Indiana Pacers. So they ended up losing that. We're not able to compete against the Los Angeles Lakers in the in-season tournament final. Giannis has been off to a tremendous start to start the year, 30.5 points a game, 10.6 rebounds. Damian Lillard's been a little bit up and down, but still averaging 25.6 points a game. This week, they'll be taking on the Chicago Bulls at home on Monday, the Indiana Pacers at home on Wednesday, the Detroit Pistons at home on Saturday, and the Houston Rockets at home on Sunday. So they have 4 home games this season, and as we've been saying for a while this year, the NBA schedule is really weird. This is 4 of their 9 straight home games that they're in the middle of playing right now, the Milwaukee Bucks. So very, very weird situation going on with that. And once we get to the number 1 team, they have a very interesting schedule headed into this week. Then at number 3, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the Thunder have been off to a tremendous start as well. 14-7 to start the season. They've won 3 of their last 6. Beat Golden State in overtime on Friday. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, once again, is becoming one of the stars of the NBA, averaging 30.5 points a game after winning the scoring title last season. And Chet Holmgren has also been fantastic. In some eyes, is the leader for Rookie of the Year. This year, he's averaging 17.1 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks to start the season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They'll be taking on the Utah Jazz at home on Monday. They'll be in Sacramento, take on the Kings on Thursday, and then into Denver, take on the Nuggets on Saturday. So they got a little bit of a tough week this upcoming week, but they rank at number 3 in my power rankings. At number 2, I got the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, there's no doubting that they're the second best team in the NBA right now. They're 17-4 now to start the season. They're off to an incredible start. They're on a 6-game winning streak. They won 9 of their last 10. They've been on a roll, and they've been absolutely incredible. Anthony Edwards has become one of the best players in the NBA, leading the team in scoring at 24.4 points a game. Karl-Anthony Towns doing his thing, averaging 22-9 for the Timberwolves. And then Rudy Gobert, who had a bad year last year in his first year in Minnesota, has really bounced back this year and is putting up Gobert type of numbers, averaging 13.4 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks to start the season. So the Timberwolves have a pretty easy week this week. They'll be taking on the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans on Monday. Then they'll be going to Dallas to take on the Mavericks on Thursday, and then they'll be home to take on the Pacers on Saturday. And then at number 1 for my 3rd straight week, I believe, I have the Boston Celtics. So the Celtics by far are still the team to beat in the NBA. They're 16-5 to start the season. They've won 4 of their last 5. They lost to the Pacers as their most recent loss, but they've been having a fantastic season. Their team has been playing great. And the one X factor I honestly think that has been keeping this team together is Derek White, averaging 15.4 points, 5.2 assists. In their win against the Knicks the other night, he was absolutely incredible. He's the glue guy for this team. He has practically completely taken over the spot that the vacant hole that Marcus Smart left behind, and has honestly in some ways been an even better player than Marcus Smart was for the Celtics, because he's much more of an offensive threat as well. He's not as much of a defensive threat as Marcus Smart was, but he does a lot on defense, and he's a much bigger offensive threat. So the Celtics knew what they were doing when they traded away Marcus Smart. They knew he was expendable. They were able to get stuff back for him. And they knew they had a guy in Derek White who could step in and kind of take his spot. And that's exactly what he's been doing. And this week, they'll be taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers at home on both Tuesday and Thursday. And then they'll be taking on the Orlando Magic also at home on both Friday and Sunday. So this goes into their really weird schedule that every team is kind of hitting. The Celtics play 4 games this week. All 4 of them are home games, and they're only against 2 teams. So they play the Cavaliers 2 out of 3 nights in Boston, and then they play the Magic 2 out of 3 nights in Boston. So very, very weird schedule to start the season. With this whole in-season tournament, I think that's just kind of like how it's going to go. And there's a lot of weird mismatches that are going to make things kind of interesting. But that'll do it for another episode of the 3&D. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Empty Match Podcast Network for another episode. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and follow the socials at the 3&D ETB. We'll be putting out content all week in case you missed the entire episode. So make sure you go back and check that. Check out all the segments we'll be putting out. We'll be putting out plenty of stuff for you guys in case you missed the episode. So make sure you follow us at the 3&D ETB and at Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Hope everyone has a great night, and make sure to like and subscribe to Empty the Bench on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a good night, everyone.